Obviously, its soundtrack was synonymous with the game, with a mixture of composed and licensed music, including probably a song we all know, Who Do You Voodoo? So today, we have Matthew Lightbound and Ryan Williams from Dambusters, who are going to be talking about elevating diegetic music, tuning into Dead Island 2's identity.
Cool. Hi everyone. My name's Matthew Lightbound. I'm the lead audio designer at Dambuster.
And I'm Ryan Williams, and I'm a senior sound designer and main composer for Dead Island 2. Thanks for coming, everybody. It's great to see so many brilliant, familiar faces. And it's an honor to be here today. And thank you, John, to Adele, to Matt, to Susan, and all the organizers for letting the cogs go round in the right direction so far. So here we go.
Cool. Can we get the slides up? That'd be handy. There we go. Cool. And yeah, before we get really into it, we are going to be showing footage of Dead Island 2. And if you don't know about it, it's got quite a lot of gore. It's got some bad language and some zombies in latex as well. We're quite desensitized to it by the point of 6 years of development on it. So we do think it's important to warn you about it. And just to reiterate, these are some of our favorite gore-based headlines. Yeah, we're not messing about. So if you're squeamish, close your eyes for the next 45 minutes. Yeah, cool. And with that ample warning, here's the trailer for our last expansion, Solo. Get sound through that as well.
Don't come to Zola! It's a nightmare! There was a sound that turned people into... Zombies, all drawn to the beat. Lovely. Fucking yes!
Find the other pieces. Restore the beat. Find the beat. You're the truth.
Yeah, unsurprisingly, we're talking about Dead Island 2 today.
And if you haven't seen it or played it, it's a very pulp-inspired action RPG set in fantasy LA that we like to call Hele. So we got your main game, and then we followed it with 2 DLCs, House and Solar, which we're going to be talking all about these throughout the course of the presentation.
In terms of specifics we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about our approach to the creative decisions, to the production of diegetic music, and how you can do that in new and exciting ways, the implementation techniques that we use that go beyond the normal radio playlist approach and provide a bit more bang for buck, and insights into our experience of using licensed music, including the logistical implications that ultimately form the identity of Dead Island 2. So with us going on about diegetic music, what do we mean by that term? I'm sure loads of people here know what that means, but it's worth us getting into that definition so we can talk about how you can play about with that idea.
Yeah, so quick breakdown over here. Traditionally, we sort of look at the diegesis sort of idea in two states here. So we have the diegetic, which is essentially music which exists inside of our game world, and it exists in a way in which characters can interact with it, or there's a sense that they can hear it. It's actually part of the world. So example source would be over there. It'd be like coming out of speakers. So it's that sort of in-world music that you can hear. The sort of opposite, if you can call it an opposite, is a non-diegetic. So, and that's essentially your score. So, you know, your emotional cues that get sent out to the player to feel something. So you have these almost sort of opposites in terms of this idea. But in reality, it's more of a sort of, there's a sense of a kind of trans-diegesis. It's more of a spectrum. And these terms here, so, you know, that kind of crossing between the diegeses or this diegetic blurring, that's what we're going to be sort of focusing on about that. And also about the sort of magic that happens when you sort of make that transition. Also, the sense of travel between these two states, the diegetic to non-diegetic, can go both ways. So it can go the opposite way. It can go from non-diegetic to diegetic, and that's where we feel like you get this extra sort of magic, this sort of special sauce. So yeah, that's the crux of what we're going to be talking about. So yeah, let's push forward. Next slide. Yeah. So with that definition out of the way, cast your mind back to 2019. I'm going to cue the harp, and we just started looking at music implementation at this point. And we were working with brand and publishing partners, and we were trying to establish the tone of the game. And we had this game-wide pillar that we wanted to very much follow this pulp tone, and something that could be inspired by pulp media, things that were out at the time that were cool and doing interesting things with music. So with that tone established, we had the brief to utilize licensed music in interesting ways and try and get some of this impact that that sort of licensed music can get with its sort of usage.
And with that brief, there was some immediate reaction to it from us. To be holding our hands up licensed music was really scary. It's obviously not as customizable as score, so it's got logistical implications, but it's also just new ground that neither of us had ever covered. When we started getting Spotify playlists back from outside partners, we didn't feel like it was working in the situations we were trying it, so we were worried about that. And it's very easy to kind of look at a Spotify playlist and go, that's your music, but then actually figuring out how this works in-game. Is it diegetic? Is it non-diegetic? Where is it going to play? All of that is questions we needed to answer. So we kind of took a step back from that licensed music, went straight back to the reference of pulp and go, okay, why is licensed music such a bedrock of the pulp genre?
Yeah, so we started looking at really cool like pieces of media that were out at the time. So we started picking just the high impact things that we were into. So we had the really cool synchronized mechanic of Baby Driver. We were looking at that. We had the sort of expression of like a kind of character diegesis, as in something is expressed by the character, by the music that is playing at the time. So we had Patrick Bateman and his Rain Mac and his Huey Lewis sort of love there. Really high impact again. We had the Red Dead Redemption trip to Mexico, really poignant sort of sense of what was happening, that sort of transition. And then the cool Rayman Legends music levels, which all had big impact on us. And of course, we also had the very, the pulpness of movies like Reservoir Dogs, and where you had these kind of juxtapositional moments in which Michael Madsen is removing an ear to a lovely piece of music, like a really kind of fun piece of music. And we were looking at those sorts of effects and what they could actually do for music, and trying to interpret all of these things into our game. But ultimately, the one sort of movie moment that we kept going back to and felt really, really inspired by was this classic zombie moment right now.
Where did he come from? I don't know.
Tonight, I'm gonna have myself.
Who the hell put this on? Some random.
I say.
Okay, Diane, get them somewhere safe. David, kill the Queen. What's the jukebox? Liz, Ed, grab some equipment. What about a rifle? It's not real. Cocktails.
What do you mean?
The Flaming Spirits, Drambuie, Sambuca, Brandy, get a racket. Light it. Look, the whole place could go up. What next? How about pool? Okay, John, it's time at the bar.
So this example contains a lot of ideas we'd ultimately fall back upon across production. It's a great example of a high impact beat, as Ryan says, but it's only achieved because of a lot of different supporting elements all coming together. So the obvious thing is the track choice itself. You can call it juxtaposition, but the end result is it's just really fun. It's got the right level of energy to really back up the moment, as well as providing contrast with the visuals and the music. It is a diegetic music beat, with the source being a jukebox in the pub and the characters directly address it. But it goes through a transition partway through where the speakerification is dropped and the panning is flattened to make it feel like a much more cinematic moment. The Queen's track serves to directly underscore the characters as well, which breaks some of the logical rules you expect from diegetic music for the sake of drama and impact. And it's an example of reverse sync as well, where the visuals are the slaves to the audio instead of the other way around. And that adds an extra level of playfulness that we just don't get when it's the other way around.
Yeah, so with all of those takeaways, we went on to make our first diegetic music beat. We're going to show this now. So please, ladies and gentlemen, could you please raise your glasses for Becky the Bride?
This is Dr. Reed. I'm broadcasting from the Sterling Hotel in Santa Monica. We have a shelter here, and we have some medical facilities. If you're wanted, we've been drinking. If anyone is out there, you're welcome. Please, come here and join us. We're stronger together.
Hello? Can you hear me?
I hear you. I'm Dr. Reed. Did you hear my message? Where are you?
I'm Ryan, in Bel Air. I'm trying to contact the authorities.
Well, you sort of have. I'm part of the CDC team in LA. I was anyway. Are you, do you think you might be infected?
No, the opposite, actually. I was bitten and yeah, I thought I was fucked, but I got better.
You got bit? Oh my God.
Looks like I'm immune. It's got to be worth something to someone, right?
Oh, it's worth something, all right. We've been looking for you. Well, someone like you for our vaccine program.
Look, I gotta go. I'll be in touch.
Hey, wait! I need you! You have to get here! Hello? Hello? You okay? You have to get it. Can you hear me?
Shit! Bachelorette party from hell.
First day we met.
Yeah, so this scene came with quite a few creative challenges. This is the introduction of our first Apex zombie. So this is Becky the Bride here. Super cool archetype, and there was a studio-wide push to make this really, really special. So we needed to reinforce the character design. We needed to have a level of breadcrumbing with the foreshadowing, and also we needed a really climactic moment for the game's first boss fight. But also, alongside this, we needed to go from gameplay to cinematic back to gameplay in terms of the boss fight. And we needed to prove this idea that we could actually do this and make this a significant sort of route forward. And also we needed to support the pulp identity of the game too.
So this juxtaposition with the track choice became a bit of a bedrock of the audio identity across the project. We've got to defy audience expectation by having Marvin Gaye as the boss battle for possibly the goriest game ever made. But this only really came about through the temping process. So we spent a lot of time trying options out between the music partner and ourselves, and nothing made us fall in love with it. They tipped us off about this track, and it wasn't on our radar at all. It wasn't in the brief, looking back at it. Outside of the wedding theme itself, it wasn't what we were looking for. And it taught us quite a valuable lesson that if you let yourself be open in direction, and you don't like get precious about it having to come from your own head. A track like this can bring something completely new and fresh to an idea. So whilst that track was an unexpected win, we still had the problem of how this could possibly work in the game. So we had to go from exploration gameplay to a cinematic and then back to a boss fight. And so talking to level design, we got a sense that they wanted to drag the player from the top of the hotel all the way back down to the ballroom, which is about 3 floors. So we decided to introduce this track early as a diegetic radio that you can hear at the start, and that acts as a little bit of extra breadcrumbing, which was really useful for them. And then that cinematic obviously provides that opportunity to get a sync point to get some choreographed trans-diegesis in there.
Yeah, so in terms of working with these licensed tracks, you know, you've got to take something which is kind of fairly static because it's not score, it's not necessarily customizable, and you've got to make this work within some sort of a dynamic environment. Yeah, because it can be quite static. But the way that we did it was kind of reasonably sort of simple, sort of you know, horizontal sort of scripting sort of sequence there. But we had 2 versions. One was you know, speakerized wet version, and which we were foreshadowing. So all the way through that, before the big cake smash, you could hear this kind of rolling along in the background. And then we had the big dry version, which is the one that gives it the impact and the transition and that moment that hits on that sync point. So we showed it to the studio and it went down pretty well. And we all got quite excited and generated quite a few takeaways that we used through the rest of the production. So we managed to get some of the things from those earlier references in early. So we were able to establish the character and location diegeses from Becky the Bride and the wedding venue. We had this multi-purpose functionality as a technique because what we were doing could be adapted to other cutscenes or other places in the game. We also had this cinematic wow moment, which was, you know, pretty cool with the zombie bride smashing down. And then we also were proving out the gameplay and cinematic sync compatibility. So to be able to use these methods together in this way.
And so from there, we went wider with the idea across the products. We've got 2 more examples from the game here. So this next one, the player's exploring Venice Beach and comes across an abandoned arcade. And so we introduce a track by the artist Perturbator. We hide it in the environment as if it's just an arcade cabinet or game machine in the corner. When the player progresses, the track starts to move along in its structure, and then eventually we cross over into a non-diegetic treatment.
This could work. If I get the power on, I might be able to open the doors. Buttons. Let's do this. Huh, easy. It's this button here. Huh, simple mistake. It's this. Fine. Whoever wired this up is insane. At least label your damn... Oh, finally. There goes the element of surprise. At least the power's on.
Yeah. We'll see who gets the last laugh.
Cool. And then in this next video, we started to become aware that we've done this a few times. The player may start to see it coming, so we wanted to play around with it. So we start introducing the track by St. Agnes, sounding like it's obstructed. So the players think, okay, we go around a few bars here, do a bit of a diegetic treatment, but we use that expectation to our advantage, so we can do a quick rug pull and do a much faster transition that lines up with a jump scare.
Locked.
Well, here she is. Not looking so hot today, Nikki. Hey, bitch. Still think you're too good for running the fucking
So we learned a lot of lessons about this, doing it at scale across production of DI2. So it was a great tool for foreshadowing, and when we bedded in this treatment with the wider narrative and design goals, it made the music sound better and it made the beat feel better. And having departments like level design and narrative aware of what we were trying to do was really powerful. So narrative brought their own ideas. They had supporting dialogue that they introduced that referred to the tracks. Again, it harks back to that Shaun of the Dead clip. And then we had designers starting to become musically literate, which was really cool to see. So they were starting to become very aware of the drops in the track and the big moments, and they wanted to keep their scripted sequences feeling tight to that. That said, this isn't for free. Licensing obviously has costs. The scale of that will vary depending on what you're going to try and do, whether it's the kind of content you're after and the strategies you use to go after that. We're not music supervisors, so if you're interested in that kind of thing, go and hunt those people down. I'm sure they're happy to talk to you. These setups are really complicated to maintain. They're so interwoven with other department setups like level design and narrative that means that any kind of dependency chain changes is very destructive to the work. But one of the biggest costs we found was not the licensing cost itself. You can see that quite easily on a spreadsheet in terms of how much that cost is going to be with that invoice, but the internal resources you spend on this, the time you spend with yourself, with research, with music partners, with stakeholders, temping, test implementation, and then sometimes you have to reset the whole process when a track isn't available for various reasons. So tracking that in project management became a really important thing for us.
Yeah, so taking this forward onto the DLC. So at this point, we'd wrapped up production on Dead Island 2 main game, and we were planning the expansions, and we wanted to, further these ideas and this kind of playfulness that we were sort of trying to implement with diegetic music and these licensed music moments, because there was pretty much a studio-wide excitement to let's go, let's run with this, let's keep going. So this is our house DLC. So this is our reference to latex over here. If you like latex and you like zombies, that's your DLC. So going forward, like these examples are very much about, we took it in a different way. So these were less about the high impact musical moments. So these were about kind of trying to embed types of diegeses into the world. So we did it in a slightly different way. And some of the application we did to in-house music as well. So it's not completely, locked into using licensed music. You can use these techniques with your own sort of score or tracks written specifically for it. But in terms of house, our usage was in this particular area of the game that we're going to demonstrate now, which was called the Deeper. And the Deeper is a part of the environment, which is essentially this really cool, dark nightclub. And inside of this dark nightclub called the Deeper, there was no sort of central location to for the sound to come from. So we were sort of limited in looking at using those sort of uses in the past that we told you just described. But it very much had this sense of when we were making this environment, this sense of we wanted to make this area which had been influenced by some of our colleagues, which had talked about these European super clubs, which were so cool and so VIP. It was always about this idea. It was a party you could never reach. So we kind of cottoned onto the idea that we could almost make this, the soundtrack, the nightclub feel almost like embedded in as kind of like as part of the ambience, really. So to take on the identity of the actual nightclub itself. So like with the soundscape, we would envelop the music almost as part of the ambience and move from that idea.
So yeah, thinking about it from ambience, we started using ambient tech to implement diegetic music instead. So this is some proprietary stuff we had built as a bit of a precursor to things like wise rooms and portals. It does what you expect from room tone tech. So you go into a volume, 2D surround asset, you're outside of the volume, plays on the nearest point as a 3D source. And it just let us plug in this kind of music that would envelop the player for free, as in you didn't have to go and talked to our lovely audio programmer about getting new tech for this, which is always handy. So that was the functionality of it sorted, but the second part of this that was equally as important for us was worldizing this kind of content. So to get a true feel of a club environment, we knew we can't just crank it to 11. So we started looking at how other sound mixers have done mixes in these kinds of environments. So Michael Semenik has shared work on his stuff he did on the Social Network, which has got a really incredibly sounding club scene in it. And this is our kind of interpretation of that kind of process. So this is about using parallel processing to build up a replication of almost psychoacoustics in how you perceive loudness. So it's using some specific boosts to emulate speaker tweaking, and then some distortions that's meant to emulate the sound you get when you get phone recordings of a concert, because that gives you the impression of a loudness even if you're not actually recording it on a phone.
Yeah, so music production is not the end. So point I'm sort of trying to make here is like it's a bit of a music compositional point. So this piece was written in-house, and as I said before, we didn't have to commit to using licensed music at this point because it was DLC is a different, there's a different game going on there. But the point I'm making with this is it was a very much a back and forth iterative mix between myself and Lightbound on this one, because you know, like what is coming out of your door at the end is not necessarily what you will hear until you do the business in Wise, essentially. So you have to be open to the destruction of your tracks in some sense, because especially in this case, because we were trying to give it this edginess, we were trying to give it this nightclubby feel, like this distortion. And you've got to, essentially, the composer head goes, I want it to sound like this, but actually we need it to sound like this. And Wise is definitely where your final mix needs to be, and that's where your head should be in terms of getting the music in there. And you really can't be precious.
It's always good fun trashing your work, right? Don't worry about it.
Yeah, so here's the in-game result. Yeah, so logical diegetic blurring. We did just miss a bit of the video.
Yeah,
so if we can just skip forward, otherwise it's not going to make any sense what I say next. We've got a big sign saying don't skip the second half of the video on here.
Oh, we'll let it play through. There you go. Make it let me skip.
They'll see. I'm taking you back to your party.
Perfect. I will rest. Now I'm in safe hands. Just give me a slap when we arrive. À bientôt.
like your head.
It's amazing how I forgot about a talking head, but there you go.
So yeah, the way we were using these diegesis techniques, so there's definitely this blurring going on, and we were kind of being quite playful and experimenting with it, and was sort of blending in between these non-diegetic and diegetic rules. But what we wanted to point about that last clip was the fact that we have this quite a cool engineered lower BPM to higher BPM tempo ramp in there. The idea was there would be, to get between that sort of cinematic, which had gameplay music running into it, and then it would get to this next music section. So we didn't want that jarring sort of beat to just kick in. So we imagined, like a latex adorned DJ somewhere in the background, kind of mixing between those. So we could have this sense that we could be a bit playful with it and be creative with it as well. And again, this really straddles the edges of what is diegetic and non-diegetic. So yeah, so we wrapped up the house DLC, and then we moved on to Solar, which is our latest DLC. This is our experience we created is kind of based on a famous American music festival, Gone Nightmare. So the player has to kind of deal with that and experience a festival. So we definitely had some new challenges we had to overcome in terms of the music. So the first challenge was a sort of music-themed gameplay mechanic. And this gameplay mechanic is based upon these sort of sci-fi speakers here, and that's essentially emitting a beat which attracts zombies to it. So in order to progress the encounter, the player has to destroy these speakers. So we had to support this as a gameplay feature, but also as a musical element as well. So it had to all work. All these pieces had to fit in together. And it all needed to work simultaneously as well. So you had this sync that worked through all of the gameplay.
And we were in a bit of a situation on Solar, and that's that we'd kind of already spent our audio tech budget, so to speak, because kind of knew a festival was coming, and so we wanted to get multi-point audio working because we knew we had big stages to support with big left and right speaker arrays. So we knew we had to get that tech working for that. So we wanted to see what we could do to utilize that to achieve this the idea of the beat. This isn't the way you should do it. This is definitely a product of timeframes that we had there, but I think it's interesting how you could kind of extend the uses of multi-point audio in this way. So in this context, we pump the gameplay concept of the beat, in this extreme case, on the side left channel. And that allows us to then play other content on the other channels that will all remain in sync throughout the environment, and we can duplicate those instances as we need and have as many of those destructible speakers as we want, which was really useful. And so this is an example of it working. So in the final fight for Solar, so the big main track you can hear is coming from the really big speaker you can see at the start, and then there's the destructible speakers that start to ramp up with distortion as the player destroys them. Cool. There's another bit of hidden tech there as well from that last example that we did want to share. So it's just some cool work done between the audio programming team and the tech art team. So we're exposing markers and beats in these blueprints as well. And that is so we can play visual effects in time with the track as well. So I did spend an afternoon marking up every bass drum in that track, which was lovely. But it means that we can play these pulses that are on the side of the screen there that kind of extra emphasis on the loudness in there, and we can also do stage effects and things like that. And it goes back to that reinforcing of reverse sync from the Shaun of the Dead example there. So the second challenge for Solar was the overall festival fantasy that we had to support. So we wanted to simulate that feeling you get at a large open air festival where you get that distant stage rumble. But we also wanted to support all these different unique stages with their unique identity. There was a few ways we tried this. We weren't really happy with just using our standard voice management tech to do this. And we were, because of mixed results, but also performance was an issue. So there was about 63 different speakers that we wanted to play stuff on in the environment, and that would just blow our streaming through the roof. And we were supporting Gen 8, so that wasn't a possibility. So we looked again to multi-point to see what extra leverage we could squeeze out of that tech. Yeah, so we started to look at these stages and have a specific track made for them and then put it in a single file. So that left channel there will be the indie stage, the right channel there will be the dance tent. And that means that we can take all 60 plus emitters there and have it be one voice, which was much more performant and manageable in the mix as well.
Yeah, so in terms of the implementation, so here's a screenshot of placement of our emitters in here. And we placed them so that you would get this crossover. We designed that especially to be a thing which is not normally what you would do, obviously. But to get that fancy festival thing, we really wanted the blending. So we tuned, we spent quite a lot of time in tuning the emitter overlaps and making sure that you only really hear to one to three stages at once. And, you know, we wanted the setup to have enough detail and differentiation that you could actually find your way to a specific stage just by hearing it as well. So we had this other design ideal there. We also tuned attenuations of this, so it felt realistic in terms of your distancing. But also in terms of content, for each of the stages, we had a dry version, which is, no, not a dry version, we had a world-eyes version, which is very distant, pre-world-eyes to make it sound very, very distant. And then we had a super close, aggressively speakered version with some of those distortion techniques that Matt showed earlier. And then we blend between those using switches and also attenuations, which make it feel a lot more realistic. So this made it, using it this way as well, made it, it forced it so that we couldn't hear any distant speakers when you were listening to the close speakers. So we had a narrow focus and detail there. So this is another example of where you can hear that distance to close speaker thing. Yeah, so reflections. So in terms of using all of these methods, so everything we went through this entire journey, so from the implementation to the licensed music, to the cross-diegesis techniques, to the extended use of world music sources as well, we essentially started to, it became the foundation for a lot of the sort of sound and the soundtrack for the audio identity for Dead Island 2. We also found there was like clear advantages there in terms of using diegetic music in this way. So it can reinforce narrative. It can still provide opportunities for what licensed music does best, of course, as well. So that's juxtaposition, energy shifts, and also like moments of surprise. But ultimately, it's like an expansion of musical opportunities, right? We can have all these different choices, and we can deliver these to the player in kind of slightly unconventional techniques. And this ultimately helped to define the pulp identity of Dead Island 2.
Cool. So yeah, with having said all that, it wouldn't be a developed talk without some caveats. So diegetic music is obviously just another tool at your disposal, but we really benefited having that tool accessible to both sound designers and musicians. Licensed music is as messy as you think it is, but that's why it's really exciting. This isn't a replacement for score either when it comes to licensed music. I don't want anyone to walk out of here and think passing a Spotify playlist over to your sound department constitutes music direction, but by making the process of music design more open and collaborative across the team, we definitely achieved a more successful end product. And then, it may not seem that accessible, maybe because of budgets or time constraints. You may be surprised when you talk to music supervisors about how easy licensed music can be. But I definitely wouldn't put it down to it being a tone thing. Yes, Dead Island 2 is very tongue-in-cheek. But loads of other games and other bits of media have shown that you can do this kind of thing in a more serious fashion as well. So do think about using licensed music. Yeah, and that's it. So yeah, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Ryan and Matthew. Fantastic speech and great insights. Unfortunately, time is up. We have time for one very quick question, if there is one, and otherwise they will be available to talk to you outside of the... we have one hand up over there.
Thank you. So just a quick one about licensed music. I was wondering if you thought about streamers. Do we have like replacement tracks for when a streamer wants to stream your game?
Yeah, it's a real issue on that. And we have a streamer mode that's available for that kind of stuff. And it is better to plan in to do that. And you've got to backfill that content. Some of this stuff is just hard muted though, to just get away from that. But it is a thing that I think needs to be thought about if you're going to go down that route. So you're not left with big gaps in big events.
Yes, big thank you once again. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you.
Please be back in 15 minutes for the